Good morning, everybody. It's 8 a.m. on a very bullish early morning or breakfast morning for the indices. I will quickly do the disclaimer and then we'll get to having a look at Bookmap. All Bookmap Limited materials, information and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Trading futures, equities, and digital currencies involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Okay, let us have a look at Bookmap. I just thought we'd have a very quick look at that heat map as we are hitting at the highs of the day yet again for ES and NQ at the same time. I've got the filtered heat map here for both, and I'll explain the settings that I've got on it in a little while. But what is interesting, if I do actually scroll back a bit, is that some of this liquidity up here, that was actually above the recent high. I think it was set last week. So that liquidity has been calling out for hours and hours. So yeah, there's a good chance that's going to get taken out today. Again, we cannot predict the future. It's just a probability. Okay, right. We have some news. So let's quickly do the slideshow and welcome any new viewers. If you've got any questions or comments, and yeah, hi to you. I'm not going to pronounce your name right because I've got font so small on my YouTube, Maguius. Yeah, you are very, very welcome to the channel. Yeah, so if we're looking over at NQ, we're getting very close to this next liquidity. We've just taken one out at 46 and the next one at 50. Round number though it is, it's been there for a long time today, so it's looking like that's going to get hit as well. And it does not look like the auction has finished just yet. Okay, let us do the slideshow and then we can chill for a little bit and talk about the markets and also talk about the news that's coming up at 8:30. So let us move on to the slideshow. Okay, the news that I was referring to is not that German news, but the news at 8:30, which is the GDP growth rate forecast at 5%. Okay, that's the major news. I've just filtered this by very important, i.e. 3-bar events. So yeah, quite a lot of the calendar may not be there, but this is really all we have for our 1 hour of power, and yeah, for our purposes, anything else that comes later is not as relevant. It's obviously relevant, but not as relevant. By the way, one change today, I have finally got a windscreen or a wind shield on my headset microphone. So hopefully if my fan that I've got blowing at me blows right into the microphone, you won't hear it next time, which is great. That German HDP or HICP news has just come in slightly below forecast, but I doubt whether that's going to chill the ES or the NQ. Anyway, let's keep moving on with the slideshow. Okay, this actually, even though it's not a profile or an auction chart per se, this and the NQ equivalent, which is the next one, are the most important charts at the moment. This is the daily on ES. It's quite clear that we're stop hunting here, this next high, which we're just about to come through. I took this screenshot probably half an hour ago, so we're getting very, very close to taking that high out. And if we go across to NQ, it's even more bullish, and this is the multi-month high that is now in play, not very far off. So the one from last week, which is at 16,170, very, very close, and then the next one up. We will see if and when we get to that. Remember, NQ especially can do anything in a session, so never be surprised when it's in a bullish mode if it can just keep going and keep going. Again, we can't predict the future, so if it has a sudden rapid descent, that is its way. Okay, let's keep going. Right, this picture here, which is the 10 minutes, we have this to show us context for this session and the last session. The ETH sessions are shaded in grey and the RTH sessions are shaded in white, so you can see basically since the start of this ETH session, we have not really gone under settlement, and we're now accepting well above yesterday's high, which is extremely bullish. If we refuse to reject that high and we balance and then continue, that is bullish price behavior. And moving on to NQ, yeah, you can see basically exactly the same, but it tested settlement once, but bounced around about yesterday's high and has now continued upwards, and we're basically at the overnight high right this second. And one last slide that occasionally I've done this one as a slide today, even though I could drag the chart in, and maybe I will in a while. This one is the VWAP bands for ETH, and I just since this is a technique session, I just want to reiterate this is not for trading purposes. This is to do a proxy on where value is and to work out how bullish or bearish a market, or whether it's in pure range acceptance status. You can see from this screen here that I'm just checking out that YouTube is showing the same screen as well. That we broke out of one standard deviation of value. That's the dark gray shaded area, and we have not looked back. We have retested, and we've stayed basically around the second deviation. We've had a couple of little dips below it, but the second deviation, that is a very, very strong trend. What that basically means is that it's continuing to explore upwards, looking for acceptance, and it has not found that just yet, so it's keeping going. And if I now get rid of this of the slideshow and we go straight back to the bookmap, we can see we've taken out the liquidity in NQ at 16150. This is on the filtered heat map, and again it is the same settings, but what I've done, and I will explain this, is that I'm now just using this as a higher time frame, a time slice of 60 minutes. I think the ES one is on 60 minutes already, and I'm using the unfiltered as a shorter term map. And I'm also testing out the volume, pressure, and balance market pulse, although I'm really just focused more on the auction than I am on any particular oscillator or indicator. They're nice to have, but we can see the auction, and that is what we should be focusing on first, second, and third. And the liquidity map is confluence with that auction. It is part of it, but it is not. It's not something that you should trade on its own. You need to see that auction develop. You need to see what they're actually trying to do, and then use what they're showing you as advertising in that heat map to assist you perhaps in the execution of multiple R setups. So these two heat maps are completely unfiltered. The only indicator on them is the stop and icebergs indicator, which is filtered somewhat so that we don't get millions of indications. And we have that market pulse beneath us there. Okay, let us drag in, as we usually do, the TPO charts, because they're quite interesting today. So I know that's a little bit small, so maybe I don't think I'll try and drag the corner, because I sometimes lose it when I do, and I don't want to lose it while we've got interesting price action at the same time. So you can see that over the last few days, on the white sessions are RTH, that we've been in a multi-day balance. I could, for example, if I start merging the profiles, so if I merge a profile begin there and I do a merge profile end there, you can see that lovely bell shape there, and that shows that we're in a balanced range, or a beautiful range on a several day basis. And right now it looks like we're breaking out of it. Once you have a balanced range and they found value, once they do break out of it, it can tend to explore a fair way, a reasonable distance, a long distance sometimes. That balance, which is essentially from about there or there, depends on where you look at the LVN is cutting this off. That it looks like we are now exploring upwards. We'll have to see when we get to RTH whether we break back down into that value or whether we continue exploring upwards. But it is really, really quite interesting to see that when you do merge it and see that lovely bell-shaped distribution over several days. Now let's drag the NQ one here. Again, I mean, we could actually we could start the merge here, even though we know it's not quite right, and merge it all the way to there, and you have another beautiful bell curve there. Let me just shrink this down a little bit so you can see it, and get the pen out as well. I mean, when you get a bell curve like that, you can't ask for anything more than that. So when you have broken out and above and accepted above that bell curve, that means we are in auction exploration mode. I mean, the market basically does two things: it either ranges or explores, and we've been in a lovely range for a few days, and now it looks like we may be exploring. But again, the market is not really open. The RTH is the true market where the underlying stocks and other ETFs, etc., are open, and they are not open till a little bit later. But at the moment, it does look like we are breaking out of balance on both NQ and ES. And so that doesn't mean that no shorts were available. I have taken longs and shorts in the European session. You just have to be very, very careful with your stops if you're going against such a trend. Let me get rid of that. Okay. You can actually see some of this liquidity that's resting up above us here on this TPO here. So all these horizontal bars are resting liquidity, the same liquidity you're going to see in the Bookmap heat map. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure. I'm just seeing the question on YouTube, so I'm just pausing for a second. We've got plenty of time today. We've got some news at 8:30, but at the moment we're really just watching the market go in one direction. So I'm just reading this question. Please show how you do the filtering of algo bands, please. Okay. Yeah, sure. This is just an add-on, so I'm not actually doing the filtering myself. But when we have a look across at NQ and we zoom right out, so this is several hours of heat map, and we zoom in vertically, you can see that it has been useful. So if we even pull back and see how these liquidities stacked up since the beginning of the Asian session, which was really around about here. And you can see all these resting liquidities were in place when Asia opened, at 1800 hours yesterday, New York time. So it's interesting that this here was there, that was there, this one's been hit, that held the market, and then it was taken out in the late. Trying to see when it was taken out. I'm guessing it was taken out at the London Open, or just after the London Open. Okay, I am not filtering. The add-on is filtering, so let's have a look at the settings. The add-on is called Trader Map Pro. I've got the same settings on both NQ and ES, effectively creating a higher time frame chart liquidity heat map of ES and NQ using this one. So I'm sure the only filter we've got is show only orders that were not changed by price or by size. And that is removing the algo bands in NQ because those algo bands move with price. They're constantly changing price levels. So if we go on the unfiltered one and we just zoom out so you can see them, this is, I'll draw them here. That is the algo band that he's referring to. And so every time that moves, it moves just up there, or maybe it moves just down there, that will be filtered out of the trader map filtered heat map. And with NQ and these algo bands, which have been in existence since we've been trading the December contract, the December futures contract, it does help immensely. It also helps to show where some of that advertising may actually be more likely to be real. And you can see that today where you've got some of that resting liquidity that they're going towards that's been in place since 1800 New York time. Let's get rid of that. Let's go back to the cursor. It's interesting also seeing that little resting buy iceberg. I would not be playing for it yet. I do trade both short-term scalping and longer-term little swings, but at the moment I am not trading. I am talking to you, so I will not be trading for this hour. But I do these webinars and I do trade, and everything that I do say that I do talk about, I tend to use. And if there's anything that I use that costs money, it's normally something that I have paid for, right? And whether I would still be using it several weeks after I showed you, it depends on whether it's still providing value to me. Okay, but yeah, I try out a lot of different things. The market does change an awful lot. My technique on what I actually on my style of trading is based on basically volume profile auction theory and Richard Wyckoff's techniques. Wyckoff's been around for over 100 years. Auction theory is essentially as old as mankind is, supply and demand, etc. So okay, well, let's have a look. Any questions in Discord? No questions in Discord. And we've got to do a time check, so we've got 15 minutes until the news release. Okay, so let us just focus on the markets for a few minutes before we talk about technique, and we'll actually look at this volume pressure indicator, which I still view mostly as an oscillator. So I was talking to Tom the other day, and Tom, I respect his views highly on. I said to Tom that I use this to the extent that I do use it as confluence with what I'm seeing on the auction, and the auction for me is these two columns here. So it's the delta column and the volume profile column, and these numbers are just reflective of the volume profile column. And I also like to see how the price action has gone, and particularly these vertical slips in price on NQ, and they do occur on ES. When they do occur on ES, I stand up and take notice, because it is normally quite significant when you get a vertical rise or dip in ES. And we're not talking about a one tick or two ticks. We're talking about something that's obvious that you can't but see, where something here like this in NQ, where they take it up and then they take it pretty much straight back down. A better example is where we had this breakup from, let's go back to the London Open. So this is the unfiltered heat map. Yeah, this here is a very, very good example of what we're talking about, and we might shrink the vertical scale down a bit. That is what we're calling a vertical slip. And what I've been saying for the last few weeks is that the reason why I've got these price lines, and I can show people what my settings are, but it's just built in. It's just the last price. That's what this line is. It's in. I've chosen the color, which is somewhere between black and white, some mid-gray. But the idea is that Bookmap is about the best tool I've seen to show that, because you can zoom in on to the microsecond, beyond the millisecond, and see where price has just literally gone vertical. And there is a strong probability where it does go vertical that will be reclaimed later. I'm far from the first person to talk about that. I'm sure you can find many people speaking about that as well, but I'm just saying that Bookmap is an excellent tool, and NQ, you're going to get many opportunities in ETH. Again, you don't just trade them to take that back. There's got to be a trading plan. There've got to be setups. There've got to be things that you've seen in your auction, your liquidity map, whatever else that you use in your trading plan, but not just on their own. But that was a very good example, because that was the short that led me to getting my short that paid quite well today. Okay. And you can talk about catching the knife or catching the reverse knife, which is effectively what I was doing on that scenario. Why would I be willing to do that? I'd be willing to do it for a couple of reasons. Well, three reasons. One, I've got a trading plan. It's included in my trading plan to do this knife catching thing. Secondly, I can watch this auction, especially with this volume profile numbers column and something equivalent that I've got in Sierra, to see when it is likely that the auction has temporarily ended. So I have got a position for where I can put my stop in, a nice tight stop. And finally, it's because the risk reward involved is multiple R's, and that's why I do it. But you have to be aware that if you do that knife catching occasionally, and for me there has to be some kind of vertical slip or I'd never do it. You have to be you have to accept that they can keep going, and that if they have another vertical slip straight through you, your stop may be missed, and you may not get out at the price that you thought your stop was at. So it may slip it by 1, 2, 3 points. The NQ is very, very thin. One of the things that I do is I do watch liquidity 24 hours a day. So I can tell you right now that liquidity in NQ for what I'm looking at, which is basically, I can't remember whether it's the nearest 10 levels or the nearest 5 levels. I can't remember exactly what I calculated on, but it's currently 8 for NQ and 110 for ES. It's something that I do monitor. There are a few reasons why I monitor it. We are in a period where liquidity in the book has thinned out a lot. And what that means is that even though that liquidity is thinned out, we are still getting the same or even larger daily volumes on NQ and ES. So that if you've got, say, when I'm saying a thin book, I'm saying that the max order advertised in NQ might be 50, but we can have a look. There's 112 up there, but I'm just saying ordinarily it might be around about 50. But what they'll tend to do is, because it is so thin, they'll break up the larger players will break up their orders into chunks because they can't get filled on, say, a 200 order or whatever, and they may also put their order in through other instruments. So one of the reasons why I like to watch Triple Q and TQQQ and Amazon and Apple and Nvidia and Tesla, etc., is because there's all sorts of instruments, and the options are obviously related to them. There's all sorts of symbols that they spread their money around, whether it's one trade or several trades, chunked up to get from A to B. You're not always going to get sessions like the one that we've been having today, where there's so much action in the NQ in the futures that you can see this relatively clearly that we're in breakout mode. Oh, yep. Thank you. I'm glad that answer was okay for you. Right, okay, back to where we are. Let's just make sure that we've zoomed in so we're watching what's hitting at the top of this. I'm just checking out. There's 729, and they've just taken that one out in ES, so we are now at a new high of the day. There's plenty of liquidity up there at the 495 level. You can see that order of 518, so they've got plenty of liquidity. If you zoom right back, that's been there all day as well. One thing I've noticed over the years as well, and I have been trading quite a long time, is that when you in ES, this comment only really applies to ES, not to any other instrument, because it's the one I've most watched with this observation. When you have a very large order in the book that's sitting there for a while, and it used to be in ES in the order of about 1100, 1200, 1500. And these days I think it's 500 is still pretty darn large for the current thin liquidity that we have. It tends to get filled. So you think, that's such a large number, it won't get filled. Those are the ones that do get filled. That's just a historical observation. Whether that comes true today or not, I have no idea. I cannot predict the future. All I know is that we are exploring upwards, and until they stop exploring upwards, anything is within reach. Okay, NQ just hitting at the high of the day again. You've got 16 or 18 at the high. You can't see that until we actually 18. We zoom in vertically. It's one of the things I don't particularly like about the clustering of these columns. So in NQ, so when I zoom out, you may get slightly misled with this volume profile numbering, that there's 56 at the end of this auction at the high, right? And you think, well, 56 is unlikely to be the end of that auction, because most of the auctions in NQ do not end on a number of 56 trades at the highest price level. But that's where you have to be careful with this one. You have to zoom out to see what the true level is, and that's 18. Again, that's something that's not ordinarily the end of an auction run. It's normally taken out. But again, the best educator for any of this is yourself, right? I can tell you things. I can tell you things that I've observed. I can tell you things about how I trade, how I use Bookmap. But the best teacher that you can possibly have is yourself. And the way you do that is through experience, sort of, being absolutely pummeled, which we are regularly on our trading journey, all the mistakes that you make, and how you journal what you've seen and what you've learned from each and every trade, not just winners. You will learn much more from losers, and losers where you have made a mistake, either in your analysis, in your execution, or anything else, right? One of the reasons that I go on about journaling, and I talk about programs like Obsidian where I build wikis or journal all my thoughts. It's because I've done courses. I've paid quite a bit of money for courses, and I have not learnt a tremendous amount on those courses. I've learnt a lot more just through snippets, from some of the other traders that I've dealt with, some of the stuff that I've watched, some of the educational material that I found the best is completely free. Whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's other things that people have posted on Discord or the Discord's predecessors, etc. But as well as that, it is things that you have noticed yourself, right? You take all these basic concepts and you build your style, right? And then you evolve your trading plan. Again, you use something like Obsidian to chunk out that trading plan so it's in manageable sections to it. If you're a visual thinker or a visual learner, then if you have a mind map or some way of joining together the pieces of your trading plan so it's not just one huge document that you rarely read, and you can see clearly how the individual chunks of your trading plan are all linked together and how that goes with your understanding of how the market works. That's going to be far more effective in my personal opinion. I'm just watching, by the way, as we keep going up and up. So, if we zoom back in, so this is what I'm talking about, the end of an auction. So when in NQ, you're going to get these ones or twos at a certain extreme. It's not necessarily going to be a swing point, and this one doesn't look like it is now because we're right back there. But a lot of the time when you do get those swing points, you'll get a one or a two, or you'll get a taper. If I did, for example, and I haven't got much space on this monitor for this presentation, but if I did blow out this column, you might have an enormous monitor that you put your Bookmap on, and you can see the taper, and you can see that little vertical slip that we just had there, and you can see how there's a taper there, right? If you were shorting for whatever reason around about here, you've got something there to believe in to set your stop, just a little bit of room above the high, and then targeting something below if you were going to short. And I said it again that I'm not actually trading right now, I'm talking. It's just if there was something that you wanted to particularly target, maybe it's this little vertical move just here. If there was something there that you thought, the risk to reward was worth it, but it looks like we're about to take out that previous high anyway. Basically, we're continuing to explore up, and we have some liquidity advertised targets up above us. So the market is in clear exploration mode at the moment until we see a change of behavior, which we have not seen since the London Open. Okay. Just going back to the filtered map, let's just have a look across as well. Let's go back to what I like, these time slices. And another point about the volume dots or delta dots, I am not knocking them in any way. A lot of people get a lot of value out of them, right? If we added in a column here, So add one in, right. I am an exponent, or I use the time and sales a lot in my trading. I use a visual time and sales, and I use a traditional time and sales. Okay, I do not use the one in Bookmap. I've got something that I've customized myself in Sierra, and that's what I use. But you know, so I am effectively using volume dots. I'm not using anything called equivalent to a delta dot. Okay, where are we? Oh, sorry, we're right on the news. So I'm not paying attention. Let's get rid of this column. Okay, we've got a scene of a crime now. So, yep, I was, and we have already gone through the scene of the crime in NQ. So we had this little fake move down, taken out the liquidity above at 63, and that liquidity at 76 and the previous high at 78 is still in range. Whenever you've got significant market news prior to the RTH, you'll find statistically that is a higher probability of ending up in a trend session. So I'd say this, we're watching this auction here. I've no longer got that number, so I'm going to have to insert that column. So we're looking towards that previous high. So we've got 4. Remember, it doesn't always have to tag these levels. We're now going to test the scene of the crime again from above. I might just move the ES1 onto there. So we're just testing back down here. I'm just showing the scene of the crime on NQ because it's a lot easier to see because of the significant level of volatility, and also that there is a strong likelihood that NQ is the leader if you go by the daily charts and also the short-term charts. So actually hovering around this scene of the crime, it will be interesting to see if we can get back above it and explore towards that liquidity above. So remember, when we're looking at levels, especially in thin instruments like NQ, there's no one price level. It's always a zone. So the fact that that went fractionally under the scene of the crime is neither here nor there. That is a retest of the scene of the crime. So far, that retest has successfully held. In other words, it is held in a bullish sense of the word. It has not gone back down under it. So, going back down by 1 or 2 points is irrelevant. If we take this low out here significantly, then it's a change in flavor, and they can do that at any time. Nice little vertical slip just there. So we're seeing if they're looking for weak hands here as well. I've also got a big player that came in at, on my reckoning, about the 150 level. So even though I haven't really got that marked here in Bookmap, it's basically around about here that you got a big buy. One of the things you'll find as well with NQ in a lot of time frames, and especially in ETH, is they love to come and retest individual huge trades. It's one of the things they love to do. So there's a trade round about here at the 150 level. I'm interested to see whether that holds as well. Okay, no, it has not held so far. And let's watch ES. So ES is now going towards this liquidity here. This is the unfiltered map. I didn't really mark the scene of the crime very well, so I'll try and do that in hindsight. I'm not sure that's going to be right, but let's assume it's roughly in the right region. So we're now testing the scene of the crime in NQ from the reverse side. We're back above that huge trade at 50. So I'm interested to know whether they are absorbing sellers in this region here, or we've got no resting liquidity below, so we've got nothing that we could rely on in the sense that it would add to our probability on support or magnets. I mean, we can always go to the unfiltered one, but yeah, you have to take all of this liquidity here and all this liquidity there with a massive grain of salt. You've got this little MBO buy ice just down there. So I'm curious to see whether they're absorbing around this area that they previously bought at, which is 150 region, to get some fuel to go up to 75 and beyond. So that's what I'm watching here. One of the things we're also watching is this delta column here to see how red that can get. Now, if you were the big player that had placed a massive trade, assuming it was a massive trade at 150, would you be in a bad position at 147.50, which is as low as it's gotten? And the answer is no. You'd probably be buying some more at 147.50. So I'd say that as long as we're in this zone, the likelihood is, because of what's happened so far, that they're still absorbing. Look over here at the MBO resting sell order 24 in ES up above at 86.75. So they're trying to create a range here in ES between these two MBO orders. Okay, now we have broken out of that, out of the range of the 150s. So I'll be curious to see how this auction now goes in NQ. So I'm going back to the higher time frame heat map. I'm also looking to see what the last slip was, and we're below that one. And seeing if there's anything else in there. They flagged a 29 order that's currently staying in place at the 130 level. Some of these other levels are just coming and going, so they just appear and then they disappear, but this one so far, the 139 level, sorry, 130 level, looks like it's resting. ES meanwhile is going into it's going to fill some of these orders here at the 4584 level. So what do we make of the situation in ES where you've got MBO resting sell ice at 3 different levels? Okay. What have I noticed about that? I've noticed that if they do fill them to a significant level, regardless of whether we go slightly above them or not, that you normally get a decent move down. That's what I have noticed. So I am paying attention to these 3 icebergs because they clearly want to fill those. So, they can be scalping targets if you can find an entry to go along to go and tag them. But sometimes, they don't have to go back there because they get enough or they distribute enough that they can then take the price down to their next target. You've got some nice levels as well in the book that I've marked. You've got the week high, and that's this week's high I think I had. Or maybe in last week's high, I think. So last week's high, should put LWH on that one, and then I've got yesterday's high. So they're both within reach. So I'm just saying that these little sell icebergs above NES tend to be nice little targets. You know, you'd ordinarily want to get out a tick beforehand, and you'd want at least 1R, so that, you know, if you were going to take that one, there'd have to be good reason in terms of benefit to you. Otherwise, you're just messing up your own trading plan. Okay, let's go back out again in. Okay, so what do we make of what's happened so far then? We've just had a lovely game of chop or chop suey in NQ. So we had a fake breakout below the scene of the crime, then a decent push up, then it could not hold that, came back, tested, and then broke through. And then if we drag this back here on this scene of the crime and we look at this, right? Yeah, this is hindsight stuff, so it's not useful to you now. It's, you know, after we'd got back down to the scene of the crime, we bounced, and that the fact that we touched it a second time and we could not bounce, that is a potential, you know, short based on a news event or an economic release. So I'm not talking strictly the SD setups that I was talking about a couple of months ago. I'm just talking about how you might wish to trade this particular economic release event. Okay. There is, you know, provided you've got a trading plan and you back tested as much as you can, there's no harm in having a kit bag of different things. The market is quite a variable, adaptable beast, right? Your aim here is one, to stick to a trading plan, and two, only execute high probability setups that get you more than 1R, right? And in some situations, you know, if you watch these news releases, and we do them a lot in this breakfast hour, you know, you're gonna start to notice things, and you're going to start to develop, you know, potential setups which might be different from some of the other setups that you have in your trading plan. And there is no harm, in my opinion, developing new setups. You might also find that certain setups that you've had for quite a long time begin to lose their edge. Again, that is something that happens. The market does change. You know, there would have been a lot of people, you know, trading ES when the liquidity was thick. You know, when we had lots and lots of orders in the 600 to 2,000 you know, range on the in the order book, and they'd have been trading for a point, 2 points, maybe 3 points, and now, you know, you might be trading for 10 points or 20 points. So, you know, things do change. So we'll have a look, see what they're filling on this MBO ICE. So they've got 122 so far, and you can see they've got 400 sellers that they have absorbed so far. You know, so one of the things that, you know, there are a few different ways that this may play out. You know, if these two here do turn out to be valid targets, you know, how might you actually target them? You know, one of the, I mean, you know, we might just go straight up now and tag that, in which case, you know, it's too late. We don't chase. It's not something that you should do. I don't recommend it. I recommend it as a good way to lose money. I'm sure we've all tried that, and it's still the best possible thing to do. Whenever you think, oh my God, oh, there's such a fabulous opportunity just to make a quick buck here, that is, yeah, the market taking money straight out of your pocket, right? Whenever you think, oh, this is a sure thing, and you're targeting a really low R, you know, maybe 0.5 of an R or whatever it is you're targeting, it's almost certainly going to be a bad idea that you're going to regret in hindsight. So yeah, you know, one way, you know, if these are holding and they're absorbing the sellers, you know, you might get a rollover just underneath here, you know, where it breaks through this buy ice by about 1 tick or 2 ticks and then goes straight back up to these two over here. or it might do what it's just done so far, which is hold this ice here at 458,350 and then go and tag the sell ice at 4,586. So you could have said there is a range that has been marked. I think I did say that they were forming a range with these icebergs, and that you were trading from you basically playing ping pong or tennis from one end of this iceberg range to the other. And even though we're talking about small amounts in terms of points, there is an opportunity to make, providing you're betting in equal dollar risk amounts, there's still an opportunity to make a sizable amount of money, or are, as is better viewed from such a situation, because you'll see this again. You may not see this again today, but it's one of those things that I'd recommend. And I'm not supposed to use the word recommend. I bet not use it. I'm just saying it's one of the things I would suggest that you're taking a screenshot where you do, if you are someone that subscribes to this MBO Stop an Iceberg add-on, and it's probably the best. There are two add-ons that I think are the best that Bookmap have. There's these MBO Stops and Icebergs and the Trader Map Pro, the filtered thing that I'm using. Those two I rate as really, really, really good. But if you use the MBO, you're a subscriber and you use this regularly in ES and you trade ETH, and you could be Asia, it could be Europe, it could be this breakfast session that we're on now. And the breakfast session is the overlap between Europe and the US before RTH. You're going to see this again and again, which is multiple icebergs on both sides, right? And I suggest to you explore it, and you see if there is a way that you can play it to make multiple R's on the back of it. So you can see here that the tightest range is between 4,586 and 4,583.75, so it's 2.25 points or 9 ticks, right? So that if you were to take it, you really would not want to take more than a 3-tick stop. If the most you're going to get is 9 ticks, you really want to try and make 2R out of it. Otherwise, just leave it well alone. You've got the NQ over here, and there are all sorts of interesting things that constantly happen in the NQ. Here, for example, in the NQ, maybe that we are just bullish. We've got this little double top that we want to take out. We have this vertical slip down, and let's mark it here. This, right? And you fade that, looking for a takeout of this double top, right? And you've got this liquidity potentially as your stop zone. There are things that happen a lot more quickly on NQ. You've got to determine your personality type, and if trading the NQ is going to give you a heart attack, don't do it. If you're prepared to accept losing again and again and yet making quite a bit of money, because overall you'll do fine if you're trading a trading plan and it has edge, then NQ is fine. Let me just get rid of that drawing. Okay. So we could play ping pong or table tennis from here up to there, and then back to here again. But again, it's one of those things that have a look at. Maybe you record your Bookmap feed, and sometime on the weekend you get to occasionally play it back, and in replay you can play this thing back ridiculously fast. I've forgotten how fast it is. It's something like 128 times, some 2 to the power of whatever. I'm not quite sure. But then, I think these, from what I recollect, the stops and icebergs do appear in the replays. If not, you can still imagine where they were here and watch this type of range behavior. I don't replay an awful lot myself during the week. I have to save that to weekends because my Bookmap is running effectively from, I reset it when I wake up and I let it run till well after I'm asleep. I will only normally stay up for the first 2.5 hours of RTH, and then I do need some sleep. One of the things that I do find it useful is to make sure that you get good sleep. What I've done recently is actually move my little Google Nest from my office, which used to sit on my desk here, and I occasionally ask it to play me music. I've now moved it to my bedside table because it's the best monitor of sleep quality that I've yet seen. I'm not one of those people that likes wearing a watch. I don't own an Apple Watch, and I wouldn't want to wear any particular watch to bed. I just like having my wrist be free. I don't have one of those Aura rings, but with the Google Nest, you can place it right next to you, and then it does quite an amazing analysis that you can see first thing in the morning when you wake up of exactly what you've been doing, whether you've coughed, whether you've snored for 5 minutes, whatever it is, and it'll tell you whether you've had a restful sleep or you've had a fitful sleep. Um, uh, if you see some of when we hear some of this high level stuff, the non overly practical stuff that some of these other traders talk about, one of the things that is of value is where they talk about the rest, the meditation, however that they can manage to keep themselves calm. I think I was watching one of those Tom Hogarth videos the other day where he's renting a place near the sea, and he likes running in the sand and swimming in the cold sea. And one of the reasons why he does it is that it makes him stronger mentally, so he can deal with being battered by the market. And we are regularly battered by the market mentally. I should just get back on that MBO so we can see what's happening in terms of this game of tennis. So basically they're holding. We don't know the outcome of this until they break out of this little game of ping pong. Whether it's just accumulation so they can shoot up, which is probably the most likely, given the liquidity that was in the market, especially the NQ market up above, and also in the ES market. If we go on the filtered heat map, just having a look. So the level at 4595 has been ditched, and they've moved a new one up at 4599. One of these things that I can do for you in the next few minutes is we can explore vertically what they're doing. That is not a huge amount of liquidity, 84, so it's not a big advert. 3 or 4 years ago, you would not have noticed 84 orders in an ES book. That would have been tiddly. That would have been one of the smallest orders there. Yep, sorry, I will go to YouTube and just read a couple of the comments. Sheriff, good morning. Hope you're doing okay. Ralph, you let BM run while sleeping to record for playback later? I do, yeah, I do let it run. Yeah, there are a few reasons why. I like to have different feeds to look at over weekend sessions. The session that I, the time that I normally find to do my maintenance and my reviews and when I'm going to go and really change things in my chart book and Sierra is a Sunday. I do not like doing it in the middle of the week. It has to be a very, very good reason why I'm willing to interfere, and because if you start interfering with your charts during the course of a week or any of the stuff that you're using, and remember, you are your own IT maintenance person unless you're very lucky and somebody else does it for you. You've got millions of dollars and they come in and do all your IT for you, which would be wonderful, but that does not happen for me. So I let all my stuff basically stay the same for the entire week. But because one of the main reasons I let it run is that I do not know before the start of the week which of the days I'm going to have the longest RTH session. I don't know because these days I really, really want my sleep. I don't know whether I'm going to stay up till midnight and trade ES. Today, for example, I don't know why I just feel knackered. I hope it hasn't come across too much in this webinar, but I do feel tired today. So that I do not think I'll be up till midnight, but tomorrow I might be up till midnight. But with the time zone changes, my midnight is only 11 o'clock New York time, so that's only 90 minutes of the RTH. And again, that might be one of the reasons why I'm more prepared to trade NQ in the RTH than most people. I won't trade NQ for the first couple of minutes of the RTH, the open. because I've seen the amount of damage it can do to my account. If if you get stubborn, these days, even if you've taken a loss that, because it slipped through your stop or whatever, bigger than you think, you've got to swallow your pride with the NQ and the RTH. Take that loss, take it on board, accept it, move on. So yeah, that's why I do record it, because I don't know going into my replay sessions on the weekend on which day of the week I will stay up for 2 to 3 hours of the RTH. So I like to have them so that I can quickly skim through and see the type of action that's been taking place in those 3 hours. And remember, the market does change regularly. So if I was looking at a replay of something that happened 6 months ago, it's probably not as relevant. One of the people that this is years ago when I was coding stuff with, this was back in multi-charts days when I was coding stuff in easy language. And I was saying to him that, somebody that I work closely with, I'm really struggling to get enough data. And I was talking about years and years of data. He started laughing at me, because it's one of those things that you realize later, it doesn't matter, unless you're one of those people that has a purely mechanical system. If you're a discretionary day trader, having 6 months or a year's worth of bookmap type data is totally irrelevant. It's really what has happened in the last few days, the last few weeks on an intraday basis that is the most relevant, and that's what you should be replaying if you do get the time to replay it. Ralph, no, I don't stream every day. I stream on Wednesday mornings and Friday mornings. Occasionally, I'll do a London Open by special occasion for Bookmap. It's because nobody does the London Opens. I think I'm the only one ever to have done a London Open for Bookmap now over the last year and a bit or 2 years. I think I've done about 4 in total, the London Opens. They can be really, really quite fun to watch, and we're talking about 10 minutes into London and then the hour after that. But no, I do them Wednesdays and Fridays, and you'll see that coincides a lot with the major economic releases, whether it's the non-farm payroll or whatever. I used to have a blog, but I really can't see the point of doing it anymore. It used to cost me money to do it on web hosting. I don't actually sell anything to anybody. So when you see me talk about options, gamma or vanna or charm or whatever, or you see me talking about massive trades in ETFs, and I show a couple of the products that I use, I am not trying to sell you those products. I'm only showing you those because I am interested in what the big players are doing across a wide range of markets, and I think you need to get a perspective that they don't just trade in NQ and ES. If they're going to make an awful lot of money, and these big guys, these large banks will make a tidy profit, as in a huge amount of money every single day. Now, you and I may not. We may have days where we break even or we lose. And we may have days where you do brilliantly, but these guys make money every single day because they have the size to move the markets. We do not. So I don't. If I ever do have anything on YouTube, it'll be more about sort of like tools that I use, and just recommendations on things on how you do journaling or how you do visual learning, because I think a lot of the stuff on things like productivity are not practical and they don't really apply to traders. It's a peculiar thing that we do, and a lot of the stuff on YouTube is just utter bullshit. It's just people with magic indicators based on mathematical derivations of price, and magically they earn thousands and thousands of dollars a day based on an 8 moving average, which you've probably heard me say this before. I've coded every indicator out there, just about every single indicator out there, and I've done it in several different languages. I do not think there's an edge in that, okay? And I'm happy to say I've lost money doing things like that too. And you will not hear me suggest to anybody to use a magical indicator. If it's something that I'm not willing to use and put my money behind it in terms of my trading dollars and risk my risk capital on it, I'm not willing to talk about it to other people. It's as simple as that. The most important thing that you can see in any of the stuff that I do is the auction. What is it doing? And I've got about a minute left, so we're talking here about the auction represented by these columns in Bookmap. And so, the other stuff, whether you use Ninja, Sierra, ATAS, whatever ever other platform you use, and how you see that auction. All right, so I am watching that auction. I'm watching it through a visual time and sales as well, so I'm seeing where all those large trades are. But I'm also finding this. I've always found this delta column. Um, Again, it's not something that most people seem to talk about when they have these Bookmap webinars. I find it useful because I am looking for fuel to go up or fuel to go down. So when you see this in NQ, you see this lovely little tail. You see this, which is a spring. So this is the last thing we can talk about today. That is a spring. So if you look across there, it's taken out this double bottom by 1 or 2 ticks, and you've got this red tail there. And if I zoom in on this, and we're probably going to take that out because there's still 19 on that auction, but that, if you had a tight stop, that would have been enough for at least 2R. So I'm just saying that is useful all the time. And there are times that you should not trade because there's nothing to trade, but the information that is giving you there is still useful because it's basically telling you when not to trade as well as when to trade. And this is the auction, and this is the auction. So these 2 columns here on the right are the same auction. That's the profile, and this is the delta, and this is price. And you want to see what is happening with price. And in terms of the dots, they're reflected in these 2 columns here. So I do not need to see the dots from what I am talking about and trying to explain. So I hope that helps. I have gone past my time. We're up at 9:01. So I wish everybody good luck. Looks like they have a nice little pullback going, and we'll have one quick look at that MBO if I can get it going. So on that little breakout, so the sellers won this little one to start with. Doesn't mean they'll win the longer haul, but they won that little breakout south. Right, have a lovely day. If anybody's around on Friday, I will be I'll be presenting on Friday at 8 a.m. and thank you very much for watching.